Welcome back to the Canyon Chasers podcast. It's been 2 years since our last episode, but you guys, you really wanted the podcast back. So we're back with my good buddy, Brian. Brian, who are you?
Yeah, I'm Brian. I've here in Utah with Dave. Dave and I have known each other for ages at this point.
Over 20 years now.
Yeah, a long time now. Been riding bikes together, been riding mountain bikes together and doing all kinds of stuff.
You've actually been behind the scenes on a lot of the content you created over the years. He's being humble. You're an engineer. You're a regional race winning championship, road race championship. So you've helped us out a lot over the years when we're developing this content to make sure that it's accurate. Mm-hmm. You give us ideas. Brian's always been a big part of it. And Brian also really wanted to bring the podcast back as well. So you have Brian to thank for it.
Yeah. Dave and I ride at the track on a very regular basis, with Apex track days. We're out there all the time with that. So we end up sitting in the pits between sessions, kind of talking bikes and talking riding and stuff all the time. And I think a lot of the ideas for more content for Canyon Chasers, maybe if it comes from those conversations. So it seemed like a great idea to just bring those conversations straight to you guys. So,
right. If they were recording some of our between sessions conversations, philosophizing Marc Marquez versus Valentino Rossi, who truly is going to be the greatest of all time. Jorge Martin, what is he doing?
Yeah. I am curious to see what happens with this Jorge Martin thing. He's basically made a complete disaster out of his contract for the third manufacturer in a row now. He's totally bombed the relationship. If you guys remember, back when he first came in, he had a KTM contract that he wormed his way out of and got himself a Ducati contract and wanted that factory seat so bad, and then they gave it to Marquez. And do you remember when he actually got the Aprilia contract? It felt like Ducati had signed Marquez, and then an hour and a half later, Martin magically had a contract with Aprilia.
Right.
Felt like it was pretty thrown together at the last second.
And he gets his factory contract, right? He goes out and yeets himself. Everyone else is on soft tires in the cold. He goes out in a medium tire for some reason twice, hurts himself.
Yep.
Just as soon as he recovers, he goes out on his dirt bike, hurts himself.
Yep.
Right? And then the first race has bad luck.
Yeah.
Gets hurt. Yeah, I just don't think it's fair that he's blaming Aprilia or saying Aprilia doesn't have the chops, because I really do think Aprilia is probably the motorcycle most capable of going head-to-head with Ducati, but they've never had an alien. They've never really had a super talent. And they get a super talent, and then we're in this situation. Yeah. It seems to me very short-sighted on his part. I wish he would just heal, come back, finish the season strong instead of this whole contract thing.
And I wonder, too, because he doesn't, where some of these other riders, like the Spargaros and some of these other folks, they came from wealthy families with a lot of business savvy. And I don't think he does, not to the same extent.
No, that's always been kind of the Cinderella story. Yeah. And part of why I've always followed his career is he really worked his way in. And, and freaking it was Alace who helped him get the seat with Aprilia, right? It was Alace that kind of helped, foster his career along. And I think this is kind of my suspicion that it looks like he's trying to go to Honda, and part of me wonders if it's so he could hang out with his buddy Alace some more.
So there's clearly like he's following his big brother, Alace is kind of his like mentor, friend, brother kind of character. I wonder how much his manager is influencing a lot of this behavior. And because when you think about these managers for these riders, you only get a Jorge Martin every once in a while, right, who's going to be battling for these contracts, these scale of contracts. And we're talking millions of dollars for these contracts. I think the managers sometimes influence these riders to do what is in the manager's best interest financially. Because if he says, hey, with Aprilia, we're going to make $2 million and I'm going to get 10% of that, I'd rather you go to Honda and get $10 million so I get 10% of that.
Who was the kid? It was a couple years ago. He was a rookie on the KTM from Australia, I think. And he showed a lot of chops. But the rumor mill was in the articles I read that it was his manager that kind of ruined his chances and got him mostly demoted out of MotoGP. I can't think of his name right now.
This story sounds familiar. I'm trying to picture who you're talking about, but it does happen. I think these riders, they wind up kind of have to trust their managers, and I don't always think that their goals are aligned exactly. I think there's sometimes some mixed, steering them toward a certain thing that maybe benefits the manager more than anything. The Jorge thing it's a mess, but I think it also talks to a problem that MotoGP and Dorna have in general, which is these contracts are practically meaningless. Like if you go and you look back, how many riders have been dumped halfway through a contract? It happens all the time, right? And it seems so unfair to the rider. And in this Martin Aprilia conflict, I want to take Aprilia's side because I see his behavior as like not excusable. Like that's not how you can act at this level. But if you look back at the history, Aprilia has dumped a bunch of riders over the years. And so it's not that Aprilia is like without fault and has never gone wrong in these contract things. I think they've screwed over a bunch of riders over the years. So do they deserve this? I don't know about that, but I think there's a bigger problem where Dorna and MotoGP probably need to step in these situations and say, hey, look, contracts mean something in this paddock. They have to. And they have to start enforcing some rules because Dorna ultimately can say, hey, I don't care what your contract says. You broke it halfway through. Unless both sides agree to this, you're not riding the rest of the year. Or this manufacturer's penalized in some way. Like, I think Dorna could fix a lot of these if they chose to.
Well, that kind of brings us to the other big news in MotoGP. The sale to Liberty.
Yep, Liberty Media.
Liberty Media has been approved. Liberty Media, if you're not familiar, not only do they own F1, they also own World Superbike.
Yep.
They do a ton of concert and other types of things. Yep. They're basically a giant promotion machine. And, they've done some pretty exciting things for Formula One, right? Like Formula One, they did Drive to Survive. All of a sudden, America's paying attention to Formula One. I think that has led to probably one of the best movies I have seen in a great long time. Yeah. F1 with Brad Pitt. Wonderful, fun story centered around Formula One in a very real way. Can Liberty bring some of that? Because the other thing, too, that has always confused me, who's the world champion? World Superbike's the world champion. Moto3's a world champion. Yep. Moto2's a world champion. Who's the most world champion of all the world champions? And is Liberty going to come in and be, let's clean this up? There can only be one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely one thing is to clear up. And I think that problem of like who is the champion is a problem for us to debate or for that impacts guys at our level that are really following this stuff really closely. I think the general fan, the bigger issues, the general fan could watch a clip of World Superbike and a clip of Moto2 and a clip of MotoGP and have no idea that those are three different series.
Right.
That I think from a growing the audience perspective is the bigger issue. They'd look at all of those and be like, I don't know. This one has some like funny looking wings on it. And that's about the difference.
Well, and the lap times are relatively similar.
Yeah.
And that's a tire issue as much as anything else. And, again, from the casual viewer, and if we're trying to grow the sport, I get more people excited about watching it. I want the lap times to be the quickest on the premier.
Yeah.
Whichever one it is.
Yeah. It should be clearly the fastest one.
Right.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that's confusing, if you're just outside looking in, World Superbike, their races are significantly shorter, right? So it's easier to get a tire to survive at that pace for a shorter amount of time versus MotoGP. It's a 45-minute race, right? Like that's a long race.
Yeah.
How many full sessions on a track day are typically 20 minutes? How many people do you know can run a full 20-minute track day session, right? And now we're looking at MotoGP and they're doing a 45-minute race on 300 horsepower.
Extremely physical bikes. Extremely physical. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely talking, very peak athletic. And I think that's one of the things I'm hoping happens with Liberty is, so they basically bought Dorna or bought it from Dorna, however you want to look at it. What I'm excited about is, and what I think Dorna has done a great job of is building an excellent product in terms of the video production and the quality of what you get to watch online. Because the stuff you see on the screen now, you're better off not going to the racetrack.
Right. And have you tried watching the World Superbike race recently? It's not nearly
even
as
close.
good as like MotoGP is.
Yeah.
Like I've been to a MotoGP race. I'm sure you have too. I couldn't wait to get home to watch it on TV so I could actually see
what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a different experience being there and like hanging out in the pits. I tried not to pay attention to the race.
Yeah.
So I could come home and
just enjoy it later. Yeah.
On the TV.
But I mean, you look at some of the stuff that happens in MotoGP, and I think we maybe take it for granted, is the technology and the skill and the planning that's happening in the production side of what we get to see. Like, I mean, remember when gyro cams came out? I mean, all of the onboard stuff, if you think about how tricky that is they've got cameras all over these bikes that are all over the place. There's signals crossing path, like to be able to actually get that to the production house and get the cameras to work correctly.
Well,
it's phenomenal.
How many times have you been watching the race and you're like, hey, what happened? Why is he reaching over? Why?
Oh, yeah.
The replay's there.
Yeah, and they've already got it.
I spotted something's going on. Here's the slow motion replay just that quick.
Yeah.
They
don't miss anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what's exciting is I think Liberty Media sees a good product that just hasn't been marketed or promoted correctly. I think that's because I think so I guess I look at the Liberty Media purchases only upside. The only fear I could see is if they go in and they try to like dumb it down too much, right? I don't want them to water down this thing I love and make it easy or simple or remove any of the sort of layers of it. I just want them to promote it so more people can appreciate it and can see it. But you mentioned the Formula One, what they've done there. They've only had Formula One for 4 or 5 years, I think. It's not been that long.
Right.
And apparently they've doubled the value of it in that time, which is kind of crazy when you think about it's been the pinnacle of motorsports for as long as I've known. The fact that they've been able to come in and double it in 5 years speaks pretty highly of what they're able to do.
So to your point too about like dumbing it down and simplifying it, that's what a Netflix series could do quite well, right? Like, the Drive to Survive, it gets criticism. It's all drama and whatever, and it is.
Yeah.
But it comes out in February, and I'm excited for some level of motorsport, and I typically devour every episode eagerly, and I get caught up in the oh my gosh, it's and it's an entertainment thing because, I mean, these individuals who are competing at this level of intensity, who are this driven to do this thing, they are all characters.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They are all interesting. And it's part of why I haven't really enjoyed the sprint races as much as I thought I would, because to me, what's so joyful about MotoGP is this big, there's this big story arc for the course of the summer. And, you have like the thing with Jorge Martin, he's changing teams, he got hurt and so, and now you have two brothers competing for the thing. And, the big race is just like moving the story forward, where the sprint isn't. The sprint is just kind of like a little bit of popcorn or a TV trailer. And I'd rather just the big, and then it becomes too much to watch. I can't watch, 3 practice sessions, a sprint race, a warm-up, 2 qualifyings, and then a 45-minute race. And I'm a nerd. I watch the half-hour build-up.
The
pregame show.
Yeah.
What celebrities going to be watching on the hot pit? Oh, it's Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
It's one of us, right? But that turns into your whole weekend. Watching the race.
I think the idea with the sprint, my guess is the real idea with the sprint was it's a money thing. It's, hey, we have another reason for people to show up to the track on Saturday. And it gets, bigger crowds on Saturday, bigger TV attendances on Saturday, and then the big shows on Sunday. I think that's really why they did it. I had hoped, and what kind of happened when they first, I can't remember if this is the 3rd season of sprint races, but I remember the first season we had it, maybe the first 5 races, it was almost like the riders and teams didn't quite know what to do with the sprint race yet either. They didn't know how to deal with it. And that actually was exciting because it was kind of chaotic. And you had a lot of like hyper aggressive riding, which maybe that's good or bad. There's a lot of crashes, but you had a lot of riders like, I know I can't win over 40 minutes, but I can maybe win over 15 and like kind of going balls out in these sprint races just to see if they could, get up there. So I think in the beginning it was kind of fun, but then like anything, the longer the teams have access to the thing and they can kind of crack the code of it, suddenly it becomes very processional and very predictable. And, usually whatever happens in the sprint is a little microcosm of what's going to happen on Sunday.
Early on, like the first year, what I liked about the sprint was a different different characters were highlighted, right? Different talents would show up. And, now it seems like it's very much the same. And and I worry, these guys have taken an insane amount of risk. We don't like to admit it, but the crashes are dramatic and terrible.
Oh, yeah.
And exciting at the same time. But when you're watching a sprint, you're like, oh my gosh, don't fall. Don't get hurt on a stupid sprint race.
Yeah.
Because the main event, the story.
Don't ruin my actual race.
Yeah. Don't ruin the real thing.
I would rather see them do something unique with the lower classes. Because I think Moto 3 and Moto 2, it's not like it's significant. I guess if you're a factory team, you're spending buku bucks to have a team. But the support teams, I think running a Moto 2 team and a Moto 3 team is also crazy expensive, and you get a fraction of the airtime. So why not? Hey, why doesn't Moto 2 work like World Superbike and get a race 1 and a race 2 and just put Moto 2's race 1 on Saturday or something? If you're trying to jazz up Saturday, let's not take away from the Grand Prix, because part of how the weekend works and why it worked so well is you kind of have this nice slow build and the suspense happening, because you see the practice sessions and who was fast in practice, and maybe this guy's fast now but not fast later. Then you have qualifying, which can be really exciting. Sometimes qualifying is the most exciting thing of the whole weekend. And then you've got the GP that it's all kind of building toward. But when you put this sprint race, it's sort of like, hey, here's probably what's going to happen tomorrow. And it's like, don't take it away from me. Let me have the GP tomorrow.
So I think that is a great idea, because if your argument for the sprint race is the racing is closer, it's more intense. A lot of times Moto 2, it's already that.
Yeah.
If you don't care about the story, you just want to see really action and fingernail biting excitement, Moto 2 is the place to go.
Yeah.
Moto 3 can be bonkers. Like Moto 3 is like
mostly terrifying to watch.
Calming. Like it's stressful for me to watch Moto 3. There's so much happening.
So on GP, speaking of like the suspense, the season so far this year, I think a lot of viewers of MotoGP, maybe not hardcore people, are sort of bored.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because Marquez is walking away with everything and making it look
and the stupid right height devices. We got to get rid of the stupid right height.
Yeah. As soon as we can fix some of these, and I'm excited for the tech changes coming in 2027, but he's kind of taken away some of the suspense from it. But I still enjoy watching the races. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to share or talk about afterwards. There wasn't, crazy excitement. But I think I enjoy watching someone at that level just be at that level and be like in their element. Because we will look back in 10 years and go, oh, remember when we got to watch peak Marquez? And it was a sight to see. Like he would just mop the floor with everybody. Because I don't think the Doohan era was that exciting of racing. In fact, that was probably more boring. But you still go, oh, I got to go watch Doohan race.
Coming down from that major injury. And that's what we're dealing with Marquez. Like Marquez shouldn't absolutely not be dominating at the level he was. His arm was so screwed up.
Yeah.
And apparently, like if you listen to some of the other MotoGP podcasts, he's in a lot of pain and he hides it quite well. And he's still riding at this incredible level. And honestly, like Marquez 1.0, I struggled with because he caused a lot of anarchy.
Oh, yeah.
But the more mature, more cautious, more thoughtful Marquez racing is really exceptional. It's incredible to watch what he can do and how he can recover things that are unrecoverable.
Yeah, and I think the sort of stuff that we got to see him do on the Honda, the crazy front end slides and saves and things that you're just like, well, there's literally nobody in the world that talented. We don't get to see that the same way now, but I think you're seeing this much more honed, much more polished version. And I think to some extent the bike forces him to ride a certain way. But even then, I think if you put him back on that 2015 Honda, he wouldn't ride it the same way he did then.
Right.
I'm not sure if he's actually that sharp anymore at the same level, but you watch him now and you're like that. Like one of my favorite examples was, I think it was Coda, when they had the crazy bail from the start, switch tire, all that chaos. One of my favorite things about that, and what I think highlighted sort of the power, the influence Marquez has over that whole group was, as soon as Marquez ran, he talked about it later. He goes, I know they'll all follow me. So if I make the jump, I know that they will too, because he knows he has that much influence. And sure enough, when they talked to Bagnaia, the 2-time running world champion Bagnaia, he said, when Marquez left, I left because whatever Marquez is doing is probably the right thing. Like, he admitted it. And I was like, well, I mean, it speaks a lot about where he sits in kind of the pecking order with it.
Well, and strategic, right? He's always been extraordinarily strategic. If there's a choice to be made, he almost always makes the right choice. But if we go back and we look at some of the greatest racers of all time, the Valentino Rossi's, they were more than just great riders. They were more than just talent. They were also incredibly smart in how they managed their contracts, what sponsors they picked up and which they didn't, who they surrounded themselves with. Like, every decision they made along the way made them who they are. It's really fun to get into it and realize that, yeah, he's a talented rider, but he's probably also a super genius. Right? He's thinking 8 steps ahead. And you watch interviews with him and he'll get asked a really complicated question and he'll answer it in a heartbeat, in an incredibly elegant, succinct, clear way. And you're like, I couldn't do that. Right? Man, he just like did, and like, next question, off he goes. Right? These are super, super human people.
What's cool and what you see, I really wasn't watching when Doohan was racing, right? But I was watching when Rossi was racing. I watched most of his career. And what you see Marquez do and what you saw Rossi do, which now I think the two of them will hate that we're comparing them, but I don't care about that. What you see them do is they answer the question. They can be clever. They can be endearing. They can be funny. They know how to play the audience a little bit, but they're never answering a question. I don't want to say that they're lying, but they're never just giving you the blank truth. It's always, I want you to know this part of what's going on, or I want you to read this into what I'm saying. Like when, for example, he basically, in front of all of our eyes, orchestrated his deal to Ducati, right? When it was assumed that Martin was going to get the factory ride and he would get the factory bike in Pramac, he basically in an interview said, no, I won't take a Pramac deal. And up until that point, everyone, he'd kind of let on that he would take the Pramac deal on the factory bike. And that one little interview blew up the whole deal that Martin could have had. Was that one little sentence, because as soon as he said that, Ducati and Gigi and all those were like, he can't go anywhere else. He has to be on the Ducati no matter what. And so they literally reverse course on everything because of that. And it's that type of thing. And like the other example is, I think it's a moot point now because they're switching tire brands, which we should probably talk about too. But when they were testing the potential new tire for 2026, the new front Michelin. So right now, if you guys aren't following, the Michelin rear tire is phenomenal. It's the best rear tire there's ever been. The front tire is not absolute trash, but compared to the rear tire, it's absolute trash because the rear tire is amazing.
Right, there's a huge mismatch in what the tires are capable of. And Gigi Dall'Igna on the Ducati basically engineered that entire motorcycle to exploit how capable the rear tire is and compensate for how weak the front tire is. And that actually brings me up to another question I've been wanting to ask you. You know, for years and years and years, I always said, and my argument always was, we watch MotoGP because this is like the top level of the sport, how they ride a motorcycle. We should be doing the same thing. How are these guys going this fast and not crashing? Can I use that same technique at a slower speed and not crash? But it's changed so much. Do you think that the technology is actually relevant anymore?
So is the technology relevant or riding technique?
Is a street bike? Well, both. Like there's the technology is completely different, right? We're running ride height devices.
Right.
You know, wings. We're seeing wings on naked bikes, which I think is ridiculous. But
I mean, it's probably selling bikes. I'm sure whether it's helping bikes or not is almost a moot point. So you could probably make the argument that anything that makes a MotoGP bike faster in some capacity could improve a street bike or could improve a production bike that we could go buy. The way ride height devices are used on MotoGP, I think damages the quality of the racing, right? Because now everybody can leap out of every corner perfectly, right? It's it sort of has the same effect as when they used to have non-spec electronics, custom ones, and their programming in the TC was perfect, that everybody could come out of the corner as hard as the tire would allow. The ride height devices are doing a similar thing now where everybody can accelerate the same, so you can't gain an advantage there anymore by being a better rider, or not as much. That said, I think it damages the quality of the racing product, but from a mechanical perspective as a rider, if you think about your multistrada, right? If you're going down the road and suddenly something happens on the road and you have to panic stop, if somehow the bike could controllably lower its center of gravity quickly but without disrupting things, you're going to be able to brake harder before you lock a tire or lift the rear wheel up. So in some ways, these ride height devices, I mean, I could actually see a ride height device making its way to the next super duper Panigale, whatever model it is, in some fashion, but not so much in a lower the rear to get better drive, but lower the rear because you can brake safer and brake harder.
Right? And I guess we're already starting to see that because the new fancy dancy Panigale Wally, it actually automatically applies a thumb rear brake in corner to help get the bike onto the apex. Yeah. So the IMUs are getting that advanced. That's a safety thing. We see that on tracks for a long time. We've always looked at, we're out there, once or twice a month. And for the last several years, we've kind of complained about the technology on motorcycles because we see riders who come out relying so intently on the technology that by the time they're beyond what the technology is capable of, they are going into low orbit. And we've seen unbelievably violent crashes that we didn't used to ever see, but maybe we're in the transition period where it might start going the other direction, where the technology is going to save things that would otherwise be impossible.
And I would, you could probably argue, and you never know what, you can never measure what's prevented, obviously, but if you think I think the one I always picture at the racetrack is somebody on a brand new BMW, because the S1000R is a phenomenal machine. It makes gobs of power and has every gadget and gizmo there could be. But every time I see a new rider on one, I'm like, because more likely than not, even if you, the rider, screw up on that BMW, it's going to save your ass, most likely. But the one time it doesn't, or the one time you make a mistake that it has no way of controlling, man, is it going to be a big one.
Right.
And that's the part that, we'd rather see riders come out on a cheap little Ninja 400 or RS 660 or something more manageable, because you're going to make mistakes and you're probably going to notice those mistakes sooner, but that's how you learn. That's how you correct. So progress marches on, and I don't think Ducati's going to make a simplified Panigale for us next season. So I think it just is what it is at this point. The one thing you need to bring up, though, is the Ducati applying the rear brake. And I think that's a fascinating thing because not that our tires, our street tires match what these Michelins are, these GP tires are with the bias to the rear. But I think you're seeing more people, because of GP's use of rear brake, starting to go, oh, the rear brake it isn't a thing I should just ignore all the time. I should use it, but just use it correctly. And that's the whole idea with this Panigale is we instinctively just use the front brake. It's more comfortable. It goes, I'm going to add a little rear for you. And it can even, my understanding, I've not ridden one, is in the middle of a corner, even if you're off the brake entirely, it can still drag a bit of rear brake for you for stability and to help it turn through the corner, which that I think is a very interesting idea that they're doing.
Now, I've always been a huge fan of the rear brake. I've used it more than most for people who ride on the track, but what most people don't really know, well, how could they know, is that you've been running a thumb rear brake for years. For years and years and years. You're also a big fan of the rear brake.
Yeah, right now my rear brake is a lever type. It's actually a hydraulic Brembo clutch lever that I've just modified to be a rear brake. But I use it constantly. I think in a season, I think I've gone through rear pads as fast as I've gone through front pads.
No kidding.
Because I do, and I'm not using, it's not like hard braking. It's not really slowing me down, but it's little controlling things. It's slowing down a wheelie out of a corner. It's helping the bike turn in the middle of a corner and this is all track stuff, of course. But yeah, I use the rear brake I bet if you looked at the amount of time the rear brake is engaged versus the front brake, I bet the rear brake's engaged more time in a given lap than the front. Now, not as much, not as hard, but more time.
Yeah, maybe 5-10% of
Yeah,
fair.
Yep.
Something I've noticed in my own riding is that, and I notice it when I'm doing like press rides, you're with a bunch of journalists and you keep up with them, and a lot of them are nutters, or I'm just out there having a good time, that when I'm riding mellow, my rear brake never, you think about it.
Yeah.
But as soon as the pace comes up and I start having like fun, I'm riding at a very like joyful, playful pace, I'm using my rear brake constantly. And it's almost become this like, oh, I'm going quick now apparently because I'm using all the time because of all these little things it does to stabilize, right? Like on the multistradas or these bikes with this long travel, you get massive amounts of dive.
Yeah.
But if you apply the rear brake a little bit before the front, the whole thing squats, you don't get all that load on the front tire, or even on the street, you're mid-corner and you're like, well, I don't really, a little bit of rear brake, it'll help kind of pull the line back in. It's this really fascinating little tidbit of skill that so many people completely ignore.
Yeah.
And if folks aren't watching the Sylvain Guintoli YouTube channel, they really should.
He's fantastic.
He is.
Yeah, he's just
and
great.
I can't believe he shares with us what he shares with us. But he says something really fascinating, that when he won the entire World Superbike Championship, and he said he never once touched the rear brake. He went from World Superbike to MotoGP, and he said he couldn't ride it without the rear brake. They were running through rear brake pads. You know? So I think there's something to the rear brake, and I'm a fan of rear brake. And obviously you are too.
Yeah.
Because I haven't committed to the thumb brake yet, but I really like to try it.
You know what makes it possible is the Auto-Blipper, which is...
because you're never touching the clutch.
Because then you don't... Well, I mean, I guess it's what makes the lever style, which is more comfortable from like a mountain bike background, right? This feels way more natural than this ever will. You know, this always feels a little
odd proposed on the
mountain. Yeah. This always feels a little like odd, no matter what you do. But yeah, the lever's easy. Speaking of the Auto-Blipper, my wife, she got the RS 660, and we got to go out to the racetrack recently, and her first couple times on it, and it has the Auto-Blipper. And she rode, I didn't realize this, she rode most of the first day on it, still using the clutch, you know, and I told her it has it, but she's like, I'll get to it. And I think maybe it was like the last 2 or 3 sessions of the day, I was like, just try, just don't touch the clutch, just brake how you want, and then just bang downshift, don't think about it. And she came back in after that one session with it and just had like a grin ear to ear and was like, that's the coolest thing ever. And I totally agree. I think more than almost any of the other tech, the Auto-Blippers like my favorite thing.
It's now too, like the crackle and the...
Oh, yeah.
But so like this brings up something too. Like I've been doing a lot of stuff with Honda. They have the e-clutch, and I just got the NT 1100 just showed up yesterday for me to do a long-term thing on it. And it's the DCT, the dual clutch automatic. And some of the most common comments I get on any video is that you're ruining the experience by not shifting. But MotoGP World Superbike, you and me at a track day, once I get the thing rolling, I never touch the clutch again until it's time for me to come to a complete stop. So is it really taking away from the riding experience to not have to deal with the clutch all the time?
When we were in here before we started shooting, we were in here, I was playing with it, and the triggers on it are cool. It feels like a mountain bike.
It's a mountain bike trigger, yeah. On a mountain bike, we call that a manual transmission. Yeah. On the Honda, on the Honda, we're like, oh, it's an automatic because I got to use my fingers. And they're like,
what's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference?
I can't say that I've ever woken up and been like, man, I can't wait to use a clutch today. Like I can't wait to go for a ride today. The clutch is there because I have to have the clutch there. Right.
Well, I might be a little different than that because every car, everything in the entire fleet has a clutch. And I purposely bought my Tacoma with a clutch. My wife drives the Subaru with the clutch.
Yep.
I love a clutch.
Yep.
But at the same time, I have no hesitation to appreciate or enjoy or love the e-clutch, the DCTs or Auto-Blippers.
Yep.
Like it's, and maybe I wonder if it comes down to connection to the machine, right? Does it take away from the connection to the machine? Maybe that would be the issue.
Well, and I think on the car part, because I'm with you, the last car that I had that had a transmission, it was manual, and I love it. It was my little Fiesta ST. I love this stupid little thing. But when you're riding, like when I'm in a car, I'm not out joyriding. Even in the little hot hatch, I'm not out joyriding. I'm just trying to get from A to B. But the manual gives you something to do. It kind of makes it a little bit more engaging than otherwise. Whereas I think on a motorcycle, I mean, I don't commute on motorcycles. I would think that most of the time, if you're going to the effort to get on the bike, you're already going on a fun road, or you're already doing something a little more engaging. That if I don't have the clutch, I'm probably fine. It's probably not that big of a deal.
You sold your little sporty car for another sporty car that's electric.
It's electric. Yep.
Do you get the Mustang?
Yep.
Do you miss the clutch or?
It is utterly different experiences for sure. The fun thing about the electric car is the sheer sanity of the acceleration. So it's the GT, which is the fast one, and there's faster. I know that, but it's pretty darn quick. But man, that novelty of like smashing your head into the headrest wears off pretty quick. And you're sort of like, oh yeah, that I'm just like destroying tires. So that's not as fun after a short while. I miss having the little car. I miss the manual in the car for sure. Like the next car I get will almost certainly have a manual. Because in a car, I want that experience because it just adds to what I'm doing. And I'm sure someone can make the same argument on a motorcycle. I would say on these like Hondas and these automatic transmissions, like don't knock it till you try it. You might surprise yourself because I think they're pretty fun.
Well, here's another thought I had too about like the whole automatic motorcycle thing. You and I are both veterans. We both go to the VA to get things taken care of. You know, if something like that allowed me to ride a motorcycle right other way, maybe couldn't. What again? Aren't these things just allowing more people to access the sport, right? Like, yeah, we've had 25 years of war. We know a lot of guys who didn't come back with all of their appendages. You know, like a DCT or an E-clutch could really make the difference.
Yeah, and that was the first time. So when people see my track bike, I have the rear brake on my left hand. I don't run a foot brake at all. There's nothing. It's just the peg. And I've had lots of people come up and be like, oh, weird, you run it up there. And then if they know about the military background, they're like, oh, you must have some sort of foot injury or ankle injury that I'm not aware of. That must be why you do it. And it's like, no, my feet are fine. But to that point, like, yeah, it does. Like those technologies do open up doors for some other folks. Like, you know, there's some other kind of odd ones. Like I know a guy who he has a severely damaged right hand. And so he's actually moved his front brake to his left hand. And, you know, things like that so people make accommodations. And if this opens the doors for somebody else to keep enjoying it, then yeah, I'm all for it.
Right. I don't think it ruins. I was kind of a little bit disappointed with MSF because the Honda E-clutch, talking to some of the folks in MSF, and they're like, well, no, we can't really allow these bikes to come through our school because we're not going to be able to teach them the proper way to ride a motorcycle if it has an E-clutch. And I thought that was just absolutely preposterous, right?
Like how dated that's going to sound.
So, yeah, electric motorcycles they're already there, right? Like and like you look at where like all the top crashes where people are dying, right? It's running wide in corners and failing to stop. How does a clutch have anything to do with either of those two things?
Great point.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so why are we worried about that?
Yeah.
You know, scooters, we haven't had to ship a CVT scooter.
Can you get your license on a scooter?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Right? You've got to be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't... Seems like a pretty null argument at that point.
I was talking to a friend just yesterday about this, and he said, you know, motorcyclists, we always look at ourselves as like, you know, we're rebels, we're outliers, and you know, we don't follow the rules. But if you look at motorcycling as a culture, and man, there are a lot of rule followers, right? Like there's a lot of keykeepers. Like a motorcycle needs to look like this, and it needs to sound like that. And it's just kind of like a funny little thing about we all see ourselves one way, but if you really step back and look at our community, we're actually pretty traditional.
We're all rebels so long as you do it like I do it. Right. Yeah. Just rebel my way.
Right.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about one of your recent videos that you did. It was the 3 things.
Oh yeah. The 3 things to make a well-rounded rider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do a recap.
So like this video has been performing pretty well, and it's been an idea I have for a long time. And it's, you know, like you and I both been coaching for a long time. Like I've been coached 25 years now, and we get really caught up in the actual technique of things, right? Like how do I shift? You know, how do I shift better? What's a clutchless shift? How do I trail brake? Like the physical techniques. But we often overlook physical fitness and mental fitness. And when I went to my wife with this video idea, and she's like, "Oh, you can't talk about physical fitness thing. You're gonna offend people." And I took a chance. I put it out there anyway, and that's been the number one comment on that video. People saying, "This is where I feel the weakest. Is my physical fitness aspect. Is what's holding me back." And I thought that was really interesting, right? Like you and I both ride a ton of mountain bikes because I think it's the best cross training in the world for motorcycling. But you're also like a fitness, you've really been into fitness more than I ever have.
Yeah, I really like that part of the video because I actually think that the mental piece is affected greatly by the physical piece.
I agree.
Right? Like, yeah, there's a mental component. And if you come into it with just the wrong mindset from square one, then yeah, you're gonna have a bad time. It's not gonna go well. But I think the vast majority of riders can start any ride or start any track session if they're a track rider with the right mindset, but your physical fitness is gonna affect how long you can maintain that correct approach, right? And even in racing, I know that. I noticed that about myself in racing because I'll do the longer race, and if it's you wouldn't, we were just talking about the 40-minute GP races. My long race is 20, 25 minutes at most. You can tell what happens to the riders halfway through that race. You get 10 minutes in and you're going basically as flat out as you can and working as hard as you can. In fact, I've worn heart rate monitors before when racing, and you can just watch your heart rate from the first lap. My heart rate hits 180 plus and never comes down for 25 minutes. That's a lot of physical effort, even though you're not moving on a bike.
Yeah, people think motorcycle is like you're just sitting there.
Yeah, it's a lot of effort to do this. And so the more conditioned you can be going into it, the longer you can just maintain that mental focus. And with that, like the one thing I try to tell riders to do, you've got to give yourself breaks, mental breaks while you're riding. And whether it's at the track or whether it's on the street. On the street, I think it should be easier, but granted, things are different. If you can't focus and purposefully make your body relax, you won't even realize it, but you're just riding kind of tense the whole time. And so like at the track, for example, I'll always, as soon as I get, out of the last corner onto the straight, however long the straight is, it's a conscious like slump onto the gas tank and fully let your body kind of reset for, you get 2 seconds maybe, but that can prolong and let you keep riding without getting that crazy fatigue feeling.
Yeah, so I just got back from ORP. It's the first time I rode that track.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting you couch it like that. There, like at our track, there's the straightaway. A lot of other tracks, there's always a straightaway. And the straightaway is always a place to kind of catch your breath. ORP, there was none of that. The straightaways were blind hills, and I'm on a bike that was way too powerful. The front end was coming up everywhere. It was utterly exhausting, because there was no chance to take a break. I got the opportunity to turn a handful of laps on RC390, and it was the most joyful time that Pat out there, because now there was plenty of time. You didn't have to worry about the front end coming up on every straightaway. You just hold it wide open and catch your breath. Again. So it's interesting, and I put it in the video, it wasn't mine, I didn't come up with it, but the physical fitness allows you to have access to your techniques for longer. Right?
Yeah, I did that.
Really what it kind of comes down to. And, the spring track day comes out, Utah, we have 4 months where you just watch TV.
Yeah, you can.
And then the first track day, you're gassed. But when you're fit later in the year, it might be 100 degrees and you're still turning quick laps.
Yes.
Into the session.
The other tricky thing with the first round is always your leathers seem to shrink.
Right.
It's the strangest thing. Right. I don't know why that happened.
It takes all summer to stretch them back again. And then they sit in the plasma winter and they shrink again. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah. I think the physical part's a huge part of it. And, you and I both do a lot of physical activities on 2 wheels. And I actually just got done having reading a book about this, basically of kind of this overlapping of skill sets. If you do something over here that isn't this skill exactly, but it carries over. It actually helps and supports that. And I think the mountain bike's a great example of that with, shifting your weight to find traction and dealing with, loose conditions and managing, front and rear slides and things like that. I think mountain biking is one of the best sports you can do to prepare for riding motorcycles.
It teaches you to deal with a loss of grip basically in slow motion.
Yes.
Right. And so like when it happens to you on the street or in pavement situation, and you're like, a common question I get, how do I know if I'm sliding a tire? Ride a mountain bike, you'll figure average way, but then you'll also know what it feels like. So when it starts to happen at a much higher rate of speed on asphalt, you know what to do, you know how to handle it, and you don't like hit that little panic mode. You're just like, oh, the front end's slipping. Like I was testing some tires for Pirelli, and I shouldn't have said. I was testing some tires. We'll bleep out that company name. I was testing some tires for a company a long time ago, and the front tire just wasn't working. And the front tire was sliding everywhere. And I would come in, I would talk to the guy, and he would change the things and do it was actually it wasn't even Pirelli. But anyway.
We'll bleep that too.
It was a long time ago. Probably doesn't even matter. But it was when I went into one turn and the front tire completely let go. And I did exactly what I did on a mountain bike or a fat bike, right? And I was able to get the thing back up on its tire and not fall. And I credit the time on a freaking bicycle that saved me from what potentially could have been a pretty big crash on a tire that was still in development that wasn't that great on the front tire, right? But I saved it.
Well, and the tricky thing with like development tires is, what pressures did you go out on? Were they the right ones? Well, nobody knows yet.
Well, because I kept coming back in, let's lower them, let's raise them. But the tire had no feel. But again, it was like that cross training, like really saved the day. And I think like if you're a new rider and you're coming into this, and this is all super exciting, but finding the edge, you really shouldn't be looking for the edge, right? And this is one of the things I really love about the champ school way is this whole, you're kind of sneaking up to things, right? You're not just charging up to find the thing. You're just like, where's the edge? Like if I slowly add more pressure, and it starts to feel funny, I can give back some pressure and then catch it again, right? Whereas if I just mash, I'm biting, I'd blow them right past. Same thing with the throttle. And I think mountain bikes, again, teach you that, right? As well as giving you the whole physical fitness advantage.
Yeah, I think that, from a riding technique perspective, I think that in a nutshell kind of encompasses how you ride a motorcycle in general. Like none of your inputs are, I know exactly how hard I can brake here. I know exactly when I can just like whack it to full throttle. Like all of them are, you're getting feedback constantly, right? Whether it's on the throttle, whether it's on the brake, or how hard you can turn in, you're sort of turning in. But if you don't let the bike tell you what's going on, then you're either going to crash or you're not going to go as fast as you could go, right? Or as safely as you could go. So I think a lot of it is letting the bike tell you what it can do or what it can get away with. And I see a lot, we see riders at the track. Seems like we're going to talk about the track quite a bit over the comment here, but it's really where you get to practice these things without distraction, and you get to see these things and really think about them. I think that's the one of the parts that, once you get past the basic techniques of riding a motorcycle, that's the thing they develop, is that ability to give incremental inputs and then see what you get back from them in order to, keep adjusting.
Well, and that's the beauty of the track. And we'll end on this thought too, because, a lot of people are like, oh, the track doesn't apply. No, the track applies more than you realize. And the beauty of the track is that it's measurable and it's repeatable, right? You have the same 10 or 12 or 15 corners that you can play with. Did that work? It didn't. Let me try this. Oh, that worked better. Oh, that worked even better still, but it put me in a bad situation over here, right? It's such a great place to hone your craft in a relatively safe way. Everybody's going the same direction. It's just like at your favorite canyon road that loops back on itself at the oncoming traffic. So go to a track day.
Do a track day.
Yeah.
Anything else we should cover?
No, I think thanks for tuning in. Let us know in the comments if there's topics you would like us to discuss. We just kind of scratched the surface and just kind of rambled on
all over the place.
We're going to try to do these more consistently. I think they're fun to do. Yeah. And I still get a lot of feedback on the ones we were doing 2 years ago. So welcome back to the podcast, The Braking Zone. And I probably should come up with some theme music at the beginning and the end, but I just haven't.
We'll do something cute later.
You'll do something cute later. All right. Thanks so much for watching.
Bye.